The father woke up early and lay in bed for a moment, enjoying the quiet. He reached for the baby monitor and walked to his desk in his office at home. On the screen he saw his baby in her crib and heard his wife singing softly, "Go to sleep. Go to sleep." He smiled, comforted by the familiar lullaby. Suddenly, he heard the front door open. He turned and saw his wife walk in carrying groceries. She looked at him and smiled. His blood ran cold. He glanced back at the monitor. The singing continued, but the figure in the nursery was no longer visible on the screen. He heard the lullaby stop, replaced by a chilling silence. Slowly, he turned back to face his wife, who was now standing in the doorway, her eyes wide with fear. "Who is with our baby?" she whispered. They both rushed to the nursery, but when they opened the door, it was empty. The crib was vacant, the room silent. On the wall, written in a child's handwriting, were the words, "Daddy, come play with me." Mommy told me never to go in the basement, but I wanted to see what was making that noise. It kind of sounded like a puppy, and I wanted to see the puppy, so I opened the basement door and tiptoed down a bit. I didn't see a puppy, and then Mommy yanked me out of the basement and yelled at me. Mommy had never yelled at me before, and it made me sad, and I cried. Then Mommy told me never to go into the basement again, and she gave me a cookie. That made me feel better, so I didn't ask her why the boy in the basement was making noises like a puppy, or why he had no hands or feet. When I was a child, my family moved to a big old 2-floor house with empty rooms and creaking floorboards. Both my parents worked, so I was often alone when I came home from school. One early evening when I came home, the house was still dark. I called out, "Mum?" and heard her sing-song voice say, "Yees," from upstairs. I called her again as I climbed the stairs to see which room she was in, and again got the same "Yees" reply. We were decorating at the time, and I didn't know my way around the maze of rooms, but she was in one of the far ones, right down the hall. I felt uneasy, but I figured that was only natural. I rushed forward to see my mum, knowing that her presence would calm my fears, as a mother's presence always does. Just as I reached for the handle of the door to let myself into the room, I heard the front door downstairs open and my mother call, "Sweetie, are you home?" in a cheery voice. I jumped back, startled, and ran down the stairs to her. As I glanced back from the top of the stairs, the door to the room slowly opened a crack. For a brief moment, I saw something strange in there, and I don't know what it was, but it was staring at me. There was a hunter in the woods who, after a long day of hunting, found himself deep in an immense forest. As it started getting dark and he lost his bearings, he decided to walk in one direction until he was free of the oppressive trees. After what seemed like hours, he came across a cabin in a small clearing. Realizing how dark it had grown, he decided to see if he could stay there for the night. He approached and found the door ajar. Nobody was inside. The hunter flopped down on the single bed, deciding to explain himself to the owner in the morning. As he looked around, he was surprised to see the walls covered in many portraits, all painted in incredible detail. Without exception, they appeared to be staring down at him, their features twisted into looks of hatred. Staring back, he grew increasingly uncomfortable. Trying to ignore the many hateful faces, he turned to face the wall and, exhausted, fell into a restless sleep. face down in an unfamiliar bed, he turned, blinking in unexpected sunlight. Looking up, he discovered that the cabin had no portraits, only windows. This is the story of a day when there was so much blood. A person was walking around, and blood started coming out of him everywhere. There was so much blood that it filled up an elevator. He went to the store, and there was blood all over the place. People were slipping in it and were all grossed out. He tried to go swimming, and all the sharks went crazy and bit everyone. He got chased by all the vampires ever. One time, the blood got a kid and a dog. At the end of the day, everyone decided to send this person to space so that he would stop getting blood everywhere. The scariest part is that the person was you, and you forgot that this happened. For a few months now, something strange has been happening when I'm watching TV and getting ready for bed. To the right of me, on the other side of the nightstand, I hear what sounds like knocking or tapping. The first time I heard it, I thought it was my cat. I turned my reading lamp on. Nothing. This happened again for 2 or 3 days. I started to suspect something unusual, so I noted the time. Every time it happens at either 10:58 or 10:59 p.m., like clockwork. It doesn't happen every day. The first time I noticed it, it happened for a week straight, then stopped. I thought maybe it was a pest. My house is treated for pests, but maybe... Then after 3 weeks, the tapping came back. It continues at random intervals, but always at 10:58 or 10:59. The tapping has a pattern. Curious, I looked up Morse code. I'm not trained in it, but it seemed to spell go to me. I'm not sure I interpreted it correctly, though. It happened again tonight, which led me to write this post. The sound is soft. I tested a few surfaces around my nightstand and believe it's coming from the wall. Sometimes it seems like the nightstand itself is being tapped. It's trippy. Am I overreacting, or is this as odd as it seems to me? I decided to investigate further. Tonight I stayed alert as the clock approached 10:58 p.m. The tapping started again, soft but insistent. I turned on my reading lamp and watched the nightstand. Suddenly the tapping grew louder, more frantic. My heart raced. The lamp flickered and the room grew colder. I watched in horror as the words, "Help me," formed in the dust on the nightstand. The tapping stopped. Silence filled the room. I turned off the lamp, climbed into bed, and pulled the covers over my head. I didn't sleep that night, and now, every night, I lie awake, waiting for 10:58 p.m. And it always comes.